page here. There's no need for you to have your camera on. Dan and I, who are presenting, will keep our cameras on, obviously. You can, if at all possible, mute yourself all through the presentation. That would be great as well. That way we don't have any additional background noise. And then we'll do most of the presenting tonight. I'll, in the meantime, keep an eye on the chat as well. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation and you don't want to forget about it, please don't hesitate to use the chat. And I'll monitor the chat as well to make sure that we address any questions you may have, especially when it's about a certain topic that we're addressing. We obviously have planned a few things, or we have a couple items that we want to address tonight. That being said, I want to give you an opportunity as well just to share with us what you hope to get out of tonight's presentation. Again, we have an agenda, but if there is a need, depending on what you share with us, we may be able to emphasize certain points or address certain topics that we may not even have planned to address. So I'm going to give you, a minute or so. If you have anything specific, please use the chat. I said I'll give you a minute. Use the chat and just share with us what you would like to see addressed tonight to help you gain a better understanding of the UCFC program. All right, so give you a minute or so to do so. So I'll keep an eye on the chat. All right, so I haven't seen anything come in, so I guess everyone's going into it somewhat blank, but that's all right. First question comes in, so I'll check the chat. Want to start the slide presentation. I'm also going to hand over most of the control to Dan Severn, who's with me. So maybe Dan, before you start, give maybe a brief introduction of who you are and what your role is with UCFC as well, so people know who you are and what your role is before we go into tonight's presentation.
Perfect. That sounds good. Yeah, first of all, thanks everyone for joining tonight to take the time on a Friday evening. I know it's a valuable time, so we'll make sure we kind of hit all the key points ahead, as quickly and as clearly as possible. But as Ruben said, my name's Daniel Severn. I've been with the club actually since 2010, so I'm in my 11th year with the club. And my role now, I've kind of got a couple of little roles with the club, so I help coordinate the tryouts. And I'm helping start the college recruitment program, both of which we will touch on a little bit a little later in this presentation too. But of course, tonight will be about giving as much information about the club as possible. We'll kind of go through a number of details to help everyone understand what we're about as a club, what we're about as a training staff, and of course what our expectations are and what we hope for from our players that want to be part of this club moving forward as well. So yeah, a little shimmy on the badge there, Ruben. Perfect.
Yeah, I saw that. Brilliant. Right, so the agenda.
Yeah. So as mentioned, we'll talk about the program history and the training staff that are part of the club. Our development philosophy, what we like to work on the field. What we want our players to be able to achieve as well. The team selection process, as we mentioned, particularly crucial at this age group, going into the U12 season, given it being the first season of UCFC. As we mentioned, expectations of the players. We will also touch on maybe parental expectations a little bit as well as what we expect of our training staff. And we'll give a program outline, meaning exactly what the program looks like at various age groups too. So that's varies slightly from middle school to high school teams, and of course the Now, I guess a different year as part of the team moves into high school and some of the team will still be in middle school with it being year born. And then of course we'll wrap things up with a Q&A at the end. So if you do have any questions, as Ruben said, along the way, if I've not explained anything clear enough or something that leads on to another question for you, drop it in the chat and we'll try and cover everything at the end there for you so we don't, skip any key information. Okay, so to dive right into it then, we'll start with a bit of program history just to give you a bit of background on UCFC itself. So we began as a non-profit community-based club formed back in 2001. At the time, CWS, later a name change to FC Premier, and more recently became Union County Football Club. The goal of UCFC is to provide a platform for talented and committed players from around the region. We'll expand on exactly the region that we target a little later on. We want our players to compete at the highest level possible for the respective age group. We do have players from all over New Jersey. This does vary a lot age group to age group and team to team as well. Again, some of the teams are very local from the immediate surrounding towns of Westfield and surrounding within Union County. Other teams have had players travel from a little further, and some have had players travel from a lot further. I'll throw this one out there. We had one from New York State that used to play as a goalkeeper on one of the teams that I worked with a few years ago. So players like the product, they will travel, right? And we've had plenty of players, a long line of players that have gone on from our club to have a lot of success with the high school teams too. All kinds of honourable mentions there from first team all state through to every level of high school success, in short. As Ruben touched on right at the start as well, all of the coaching provided to UCFC teams is professional staff. There are volunteers that help out behind the scenes, of course, with things like scheduling, but the training itself, everything on field and all information that's sent out will come from your professional trainer. These coaches are experienced and high level trainers with coaching experience from around the world. We do have trainers, like myself and from Ruben that have come from Europe. We've got a couple from South America. We've got a couple of, North Americans too. And a lot of these coaches have got very mixed backgrounds from, where they've grown up from, what type of football they've grown up with, and where they've had coaching experience beyond that too. So it's a real blend that we've got within the club, and we do spend a lot of time sharing ideas and bouncing coaching techniques off each other too. This is a continually refined process, right, Ruben? But the recruiting process is getting a little more fine-tuned as we go. I'm sure that is to the benefit of all the players moving forward as well. We have a much more refined process at this point where we are very careful about who we bring into the club. A big part of that is making sure that we have not just coaches with the high level experience and qualifications, but also coaches that have got a good personality to bring out the best of our players and implement our coaching philosophy and development philosophy as best as possible. Personality is key there. And for more information on all the trainers, you can jump on unioncountyfc.com. There's bios of all the trainers. There's the trainer page, and there's also, if you click on any of the individual team pages, you can see information on each trainer on those pages too. Okay, so to jump into a little information on our development philosophy. So what we want to see from our teams on the field, we want to play positive possession-based a positive possession-based style of soccer. What we mean by positive is an attacking style of soccer. We want to teach our players to be creative, to think forward, to play forward when possible, and to encourage that creativity within there as well. a big part of this, and this will come up in one of the later points as well, is based on decision making. So knowing when to, you know, choose your moment to be creative versus, you know, when to play a simple pass to open up possession, for example. Just go back one, Ruben, just highlight the one in red for a second. Thank you. So a big part of this is, I guess, a now very common phrase in youth soccer is we want our teams to build from the back. It's a term associated with possession-based football. It means we want effectively that we want our goalkeepers to be used as part of the possession when necessary, when needed. In other words, we have a little bit of pressure on our goalkeepers to use their feet. They're not just there to catch the ball and point it up the field. They're there as a massive part of how and a little bit of background noise there. If you got my muting.
I'll get that resolved then. And I do want to add then, by the way, that obviously highlighting build out from the back as one of the means or one of the things you can recognize us for or how we like to play, but it's not the end all. And it's not the only thing we do, because people often confuse positive possession base with playing from the back, but there's a lot of other things. And I think you touched on it briefly, but people may not have heard that. Like, we're looking to play forwards. We want to go forwards as quickly as we can. And sometimes that means, you know, you're able to go forwards in 5 passes. Sometimes that means you got to be a little more patient and open up the opponent. And that means we got to move the ball to open up the opponent, which goes in line with the next point, which is controlling the rhythm of the game, right? Which I would argue is one of the major issues that you see in youth soccer in general, is that the games are often played at the same pace. And the peers around, the peers around the world are a little more savvy and are able to control the rhythm of the game much better, recognizing when to slow down, when to speed it up, etc., which will help you outplay an opponent. Sorry, Dan, for interjecting. I didn't want to take over, but
perfect.
That was very necessary to add.
Perfect. You want to skip ahead one? You've summed that one up. As we briefly touched on there as well, decision making is key, right? So it's a huge factor of how we train and what we work on in our training sessions as well. You know, helping players make the best decision for the moment. Can they play forward? Do they have an opportunity to dribble forward? Do they have an opportunity to use some skill? Is it best to play that simple pass? Is there an opportunity to switch the field? There's so many options in the moment, and we want to help teach the players how to make the best decision in those moments. So we see a lot of game type situations played out in our training sessions as well through a variety of different means. Okay. The goal of what I want to see of our players as well is for them to be technically comfortable on the ball, so they can move the ball quickly. They can, you know, have the opportunity to beat players or get out of tighter situations. And we also want to show that they are tactically confident and tactically aware of situations, understanding. Help us out with that one too, Ruben. Yeah, tactically confident and tactically comfortable in a variety of situations as well, and that kind of relates back to controlling the rhythm of the game a little bit as well. Understanding the rhythm of the game and a variety of tactics in the game often go hand in hand too. Key point here: this is a process. It takes time. So this is the end goal. This is what we want things to look like. This doesn't happen overnight. Different players will learn at different speeds. Some players will grasp concepts quicker than others. Some players may improve technically quicker than others. And it does take time for all of this to come together. Again, often depends on the group, depends on the makeup of the group. But the key point is a process. It does take time, and mistakes will happen in that time. And that's a key point of it. We'll stick with those players. We'll stick with the team, and we have to support them through those times and through those mistakes. They will happen in the game. So yeah, just that side note, basically, for you to expect and support players through those situations. A key point, another key part, right? We do want to win. Of course, we want to set our teams up for, you know, success on the field performance-wise, and of course to win the game, right? That's the ultimate goal. That's what the players want to, you know, walk off the field saying they won the game today. We don't want to sacrifice the performance for that. We don't want to sacrifice individuals for that. We do want to give opportunity to all players to get them on the field. I want to give them a decent amount of game time where opportunity arises for sure. But again, understand that we do want to win the games. We won't be sacrificing games, but we're not going to do that at all costs. Ruben, this one's for you for sure.
Yeah, I would say read this and then I'll add to give you about 20 to 30 seconds or so. I mean, key to this message is for teams to get better, players have to get better, and that's what we focus on. And we want to win. We are competitive. We care about. We want our players to compete. But learning to play also means you have to, learn to deal with a loss on occasion and know what that means. And you often learn more, by defeat than by winning, to be frank. But looking at where the program is now from where we started, we are very positive with the development that the program has made over the last couple of years, and it shows in recent results of our teams at a variety of different tournaments, as recently as our middle school teams competing in the PDA Spring Kickoff last weekend, as well as where our teams play in the EDP League, which we have chosen as the league that we compete in, with the majority of our middle school teams competing in what's considered the National League. I'm not going to go too far with that, but because I know Dan will touch on that. But we've seen our program take giant steps, and we have seen teams improve over time because the players have gotten better. And that's the role of us coaches, right? Yes, we want to win. We want to teach them how to compete. But if they don't get better, the team's not going to get better. And that's why we do what we do. And we firmly believe in it. And it's also shown, you got to sow the seed before you can reap the rewards, right? So that's what we do. So team selection then.
Yep. So as a UCFC, as we noted at the start, so UCFC begins U12. So obviously this year coming up, that's for our 2010 players. You can actually skip straight away, Ruben, on this one. So therefore, as it all ties in together, we have the open tryouts that have varied from early to mid-spring. This season, I call this mid-spring, given that the tryouts start on Monday and they run over the following 2 weeks. Middle school teams compete starting in August. We'd usually get together kind of mid to late August for a pre-season and potentially a pre-season tournament as well. And they'll play right through until June. Is a year-round program. So August for pre-season, they'll stay outdoors. Again, we'll touch on the exact program outline later. But they'll stay outdoors typically through close to Thanksgiving. Sometimes a touch after Thanksgiving, and then they have the winter program, December, January, February, back outdoors in March through June, and they wrap things up early to mid-June. High school teams, typically we put October or November there through until June. Why we put October and November is players will come back as soon as their high school teams wrap up. So obviously some high school teams will go a little further in counties or even in states. But as soon as the high school teams are knocked out of the tournaments, their season's over. Our training starts up again from that point. So it may be a case of the first week or two, depending on the variety of high schools. The first week or two, we may have half a squad there, but as soon as all the players are done with the high school seasons, everything picks up with the UCFC teams from that week on, pretty much. The exception being the U15 team. We'll touch on their exact program outline specific to that age group. The reason being that's the age group where some players will be in middle school and some will be in high school. But again, we'll delve into the breakdown of that age group a little later in the presentation. Our program is designed for highly motivated and committed players. We want this to be players' number one sport. We don't want to be in the situation where players are picking and choosing what they attend. We want to be the number one. We don't mind players doing, of course, things around UCFC, but we do like to be the number one. We ask for that commitment to be across the board. There are a variety of summer playing opportunities available. This will vary by age group to age group, and of course interest levels as well as to exactly what the makeup of that will be, whether it's 1 or 2 training sessions a week or whether it's something a little bit more. Again, I know there are a few discussions going on right now depending on the age groups of exactly what we're going to be putting out there, but in short, there are opportunities available through the summer too. Okay, so again, here are the main things that we look for in the players. So how we form the teams themselves. So players will be selected based on the following criteria: effort, attitude. There you go, you can fly through these: coachability, commitment. That means attendance and making the most of each and every training session. That's what we refer to as commitment. And of course, talent and aptitude. It's a combination of those 5 things that we will evaluate players on to make the best decisions of what the team makeup is going to look like. Roster sizes. Okay, they do vary age group to age group. Of course, our U12 teams are 9v9, and so typically we take a roster of between 12 and 13 players. It depends on a couple of things, basically. One of them being the makeup of the players that are available. Well, I guess that being the biggest one, to be honest, the makeup of the players being available. And again, a backup point may be depending on how many reserve players we take. Reserve players is something that we'll also come to touch on a little bit later as well. Right now, in fact, the reserve player opportunities come from players that may not quite be ready for a full roster spot. What a reserve player is a player that will still play for their travel team, and they get invited to join the UCFC team for 1 training session per week, and they may earn game time when opportunities arise. That's as long as they're kind of checking the boxes of showing good effort, showing good commitment, and their performance levels are increasing. If players are then missing on a particular game day, there will be opportunities for the reserve players to jump in and potentially earn game time too. But the reserve player program itself is geared towards helping players effectively bridge the gap that may be close to UCFC, close in ability already, and we want to give them that extra training session a week in the UCFC environment to see if they can close the gap in the current roster effectively. As we touched on a little bit as well, the players develop at different paces. They do. Sorry, got cats all around me. They so players develop at different speeds. Some may be very far along with the development at U12. Some may need a few extra seasons before they can kind of get up to speed with the team. But I believe it's on the next one, Ruben. We do have got one more. A number of players. Maybe I didn't put it in there then. A number of players that are, we would consider stronger players on our UCFC teams in the high school age groups, for example, that maybe didn't make UCFC at U12, at U13. They've come in a little bit later. They've developed a steadier pace, perhaps. They've had exposure to the higher level, maybe a little later. Had success at the slightly lower level, able to build their confidence, able to build their ability, and they've come in as a stronger player later. Okay, not everybody is ready at the same time. Okay, and it's not the be all end all if you don't make it straight away, is the point. We'll expand on the league actually on the second to last slide here, but the league level, so how we select or how we request where we go is simply based on the knowledge of the group that we build. Okay, so as an example, all of our middle school teams right now, I think, Ruben, was it 5 out of 6 of the middle school teams play in the USYS National League, so very high level competition. And they, I believe they all went in there, or the younger ones, the 2009s went straight in there based on the fact that we knew we had a strong group of players. Again, specifics on the leagues we'll come back to shortly, but yeah, the level of play will be requested based on what we know of the group that we put together.
Hey Dan, we earlier on when I posed a question to everyone in attendance, somebody asked about multiple teams, which is something we have done, and I just want to jump on that really quick because
Yep.
this is all part of team selection as well. As you know, in a few circumstances, we have formed more than one team for UCFC. At this point, I would say it's more the exception than the rule. However, we are open to the idea, depending on what we see in terms of interest. And it's not just quantity, but it's also quality. We want to make sure that if we form teams, that they're able to represent the program well at a decent standard, and that the players are not only of a decent standard, but also are into getting better and making the most of the experience. So we want to make sure that it is a team that has longevity, and it's not just for 1 year, but that there's a team there for players that they can stick with for the years to come. Or potentially, if we have two teams, right? We have had instances where players have played on UCFC B teams and eventually made a jump to a UCFC A team. But again, that depends on interest, the overall standard of play showcased, as well as what these players are really into. Just want to make sure there's clarity on that. So I wouldn't say it's an exact science, but there's definitely a couple items or a couple factors that need to be considered before we move forward with something like that.
Sure. Yep. That's the one that we doubled down on by mistake there, Ruben.
There we go.
Okay, so just delve into our expectations a little bit first of the players. So commitment, as we touched on early, is the is a core part of that. We want players to be committed. As mentioned, we want UCFC to be the number one sport, the number one choice for our players that are part of these teams. We do want those players, if you can actually skip in, Ruben, we do want them to be part of all team events. That means, tournaments, team parties, team get-togethers. We'd love everybody to, be a team, in short, as part of everything, basically. We want players to be on time. Being on time means being early. As an example, the typical rule for teams is to, where possible, arrive 15 minutes before a training session so that they can, get there, catch up, socialize, warm up, and be ready to go by the start of the session. And of course, we want all of them to wear UCFC gear, look the part, look professional, and show togetherness all at the same time. Effort is a huge part of, basic expectations of our players here as well. With that, we want them to be a good teammate, show good focus, and of course, be competitive. Being competitive meaning at training sessions and at games as well. Okay, show good competition, show good competitive attitude throughout. Okay, that takes us straight onto the next one as well, which is attitude itself. Okay, we want the players to be coachable and show a good willingness to improve. Again, these are all tied in here, right? It's about being a good teammate, showing good effort, showing good attitude, all tied in. And excuse me, last one, showing respect. That means to teammates. That could be at training, it could be on the field, out of the field, and of course showing respect to opponents and referees as well. We want to keep a positive reputation for our club of having players that show respect all around.
All right, Dan, if you don't mind, we have one more question about team announcements.
Sure.
So generally speaking, depending on the number of tryouts that we do, teams are announced within a few days after the only tryout or the second tryout, because some age groups we have more than one tryout, although it's somewhat limited this year. But if you do have two tryouts, it will be within a few days after the second tryout. Specifically now, I think somebody asked about the U12s. And what we normally do is reach out, send out invites. Invites are to be accepted within 48 hours. If someone declines an invite, we want to make sure we have plenty of time to go down what we consider the waiting list, to answer that question. And to jump on what Dan just said, we mentioned the 5 factors, key factors that we consider when we talk about team selection. So we talked about effort, attitude, coachability, aptitude as such, but also talent. But we did that in set order because ability is one, but without without a positive attitude, without effort, without a commitment to, all right, you're not going to get much further. All right, it needs a lot more than just that, and that's why we have those 5 factors and share them in order as well. Then program outline. I'm ready.
Perfect. Here we go. This is where there are a few variables. So we'll get straight into the middle school teams first of all. So that's where I think the majority of this call will be starting, with interest in the U12. So U12 to 14 age groups. In the fall season, we'll do 2 to 3 tournaments. I think this year we did 2 in the fall with a target of 3 in the spring. It can fly through these ones, Ruben. It'll all be pretty fast. There's going to be around 10 league games. Now the league games will vary depending on exactly the makeup of the league itself. We do supplement with what we call crossover games. So, for example, in EDP, if your flight's only got 8 teams in it, so you've got 7 opponents, 7 league games, they'll throw roughly 3, 4, sometimes more crossover games on there. Coaches will often reach out to add on crossover games as well, so they get more games and more weekly competition in there too. There'll be one cup competition as well, which is typically the state cup. Obviously, this past year was a little different. They moved the state cup to the spring, but typically the state cup is a fall competition at various levels of the state cup as well. But in general, that's the reference there. 2 to 3 training sessions per week. Now that does depend on weekend games as well. Some teams teams will typically train twice midweek plus 1 Saturday training session, and typically a Sunday game. Now, if you end up with 1 game on a Saturday, some teams may flip that and have a training session on a Sunday, depending on a number of factors there as well. Some teams may also go on a given week 2 midweek training sessions and 2 games at the weekend. Again, depends on a number of factors there, whether it's you've got a cup game and a league game, crossover and a league game. Again, you've got rainouts and makeups to put in there. Again, they're all factors that could contribute to having 2 games in the weekend. In the winter, this has changed a little bit over recent years. So, I've listed this one as variable, particularly with the current climate as well. We have everything going on globally. I'm referencing there, but typically we've gone indoors in the past. This year we did stay outdoors, and we made 4 sessions available. So again, this has varied over recent years. So 3 to 4 sessions will be available in total. You can skip 2 here, Ruben, by the way. 3 to 4 sessions will be available in total, and that will be a combination of training, games, and potentially indoor and outdoor, or outdoor, should I say.
And to add to that, Dan, I mean, this year was, I would hopefully like to assume, I'm hopeful that we can assume it was an exception on the rule that we decided to stay outdoor, already thinking ahead. Several sessions a week, both weekday and weekend. It may well be a hybrid, because outdoors you just simply have more space available, but it's also weather pending. And the year that we decided to only stay outdoors, unfortunately the weather didn't really work with us, but that's just unfortunate. And we want to make sure that our players are given opportunities to play still during the winter.
Yep. Perfect. So onto the spring. So in short there, we mentioned in the fall we do 2 to 3 tournaments. In the spring we also do 2 to 3. The goal is to get 5 tournaments through the year. So if we do 2 in the fall, we'll do 3 in the spring and vice versa. Exactly the same situation. Just to touch on that, actually, we tend to do 1 out-of-state tournament, which is typically Memorial Weekend. This year, there we go. This year, we aren't going out of state, but again, that's due to everything that's going on globally. But I believe the plan is to go back to an out-of-state tournament again next year. Again, one cup competition, often the NJ Cup or a variation of the State Cup. A couple others that are there as well, the EDP Open Cup, or I believe that's got a different name this season. And just exactly the same as the fall, 2 to 3 training sessions per week, depending on the makeup of the games at the weekend. So that's what the typical year for a UCFC middle school team would look like.
Right. Dan, just so you know, we had several questions coming in already, so I just want to jump on all those questions. I wrote them down in order while you're talking about. My suspicion is that the majority of the people are asking questions about our middle school program, so we most likely are going to speed through the rest when it comes to the program outline, also for the sake of time. But I had a question, or we had a question in regard to team selection and whether or not it was position specific, especially at the younger ages. At the younger ages, I would argue, yes, obviously, strengths and weaknesses in certain positions is considered, but overall, your ability as a player, your understanding of the game, your ability to make decisions and execute them accordingly, in the end, will have you come out on top. And if you're a decent player, you could, especially the younger age, play in a few different positions still, because U12, U13 is still rather early to specialize in one set possession. The goalkeeper position is often a slight exception on the rule, but it's very well possible that U12 or U13, one or two or three players still split the responsibility, but with the idea that if you are in the goal and you're a part-time goalkeeper, you should also be able to hold your own on the field, obviously. So there was one in regards to position specific team selection. Somebody asked about the coach assignments, and my gut tells me that this is in regards to the coach assignments for the incoming U12s specifically. So I can actually share, or we can share that right now, that with the 2010 boys, Mike Jeffrey is going to take the team, who has been with the program for several years. And Dan Severin, who's on the call here, is going to take the 2010 girls team, the incoming U12s girls team. And again, Dan has been with the program for many, many years and hasn't only proven himself as a quality coach within the program, but also has a great role within the program, given his expertise, knowledge overall. So that's that. And then somebody asked about the 2010s and whether or not that's a newly to form team, but that is indeed a newly to form team, because our program starts at U12. So the tryouts that we're going to run the weeks ahead, I mean, we're starting this coming week already. The tryouts that we run this coming week are to form our U12 team as well as all the other teams, but our newly to form U12 team, which is for 2010s. So those are all the questions that have come up through the chat. I believe I answered all of them. If anyone has any other questions, again, continue to use the chat. Then we'll just breeze through the middle school, high school, U15s and beyond, if you're okay with that.
Absolutely, yeah, perfect. Okay, so the only real difference here for the U15 team, as mentioned, this is an age group where some players will be in high school and some will still be in middle school. So what we offer there, in short, first of all, for the middle school players, is that they will have an opportunity to play with the oldest age middle school team that's remaining. For example, the 2007s next year will be 2007 middle schoolers, sorry, will be training alongside the 2008s. That will also give the 2008s opportunity to book games versus other clubs in a similar situation that have 2007s that are looking for games. So it gives 2008s an opportunity to play up. It gives the remaining 2007s opportunity for game time. And this is, so actually skip one ahead, Ruben. We do try to get kind of at least 5 games in the fall, and I was part of this myself last year with the 2007s and 6s, and I think we actually got about 7 or 8 games through the season, and myself and Ruben will be working together on the girls' side with the 7s and 8s next season, as an example again. So the coaches try to work closely together to get as many opportunities for the younger team to play up and the remaining older players to still get games while their remaining teammates are playing in high school. When those teammates are back from high school, this is the difference. We have a late fall season, so it's typically from when they get back, again, late October, early November. We'd play through kind of early to mid-December. We'd attend a couple of tournaments and do 2 to 3 training sessions a week, adding in those additional late fall games. This is what you can actually fly through here, Ruben. The winter looks the same as it does for the middle school teams, and so does the spring. U15 again would do, it probably will be 3 tournaments at that point. And then for the high school teams, everything would be late fall. So as we've referred to the late fall again, that's the teams coming back from their high school soccer seasons to rejoin together. We'll do the 2 late fall tournaments. We'll get a number of games in there, train again 2 to 3 times a week. Sometimes the state cup competition may start a little earlier for the high school age teams. Potentially, sometimes it depends on the number of teams that enter it. Some of them won't start until the spring, so there's the option that you may have a state cup game in the late fall. And again, 2 to 4 training sessions per week, depending on the makeup of the weekend games and tournament situation going in there. Winter looks the same. And then in the spring, the one variable is a possibility of an additional tournament in there. We'll say 3 to 4 tournaments, depending on the makeup of the team. Our goal, and what we'll actually touch on the next slide, is to push as many players towards college soccer as possible. So if there are additional college showcase events to send players to in the spring at the high school age, we will do our best to do that. So just quickly then on the college recruitment program, of course, the majority on the call will be a long way from this, but this is our a goal, I guess, on the top end of the club right now as the players get a little older and look for collegiate exposure. We've got a new developing college recruitment program. It's had some great success actually very early. We've got a lot of players that maybe even didn't have college soccer on their radar. It's got them exposure to college coaches already, and you know, has turned a few heads, in short. We help guide the players through the process of helping them, I guess, build a profile for themselves, basically, to get themselves in front of coaches, to make coaches aware of them, to decide exactly what they'd be looking for in a particular program. There are so many options out there collegiately that there will be, you know, a suitable level and a suitable college for anyone who loves soccer to keep playing, basically. So our goal is to help a player through that process. We'll guide them all the way through. One of the ways we do that is building awareness to the college coaches. We'll reach out. So this is the double-edged sword. We reach out to college coaches to get their attention and make sure that they're aware of our club and that they're aware of what tournaments we're going to be at, who we're playing, when we're playing, just giving the college coaches the best opportunity to come and look at our players. And again, making our players aware of what coaches are going to be at certain tournaments. So it gives the players the opportunity to reach out directly to those coaches as well. A lot of that will come through these college showcase events. And these two tie in together, actually. So we have team flyers that we put together. The coaches will collect a lot of information on their players, a lot of basic information really on their players that they're put together on a team flyer that get sent out as a PDF and also handed out at the field to college coaches at events, at tournaments, sometimes at league games as well, or even state cup games. If college coaches are spotted there, we will run a team flyer over to them so that they, you know, have easy access basically to know who they're watching. We leave them the email address and connect with the college coaches directly after the game to see who they were interested in, basically, and help connect them with the players afterwards. And the final point as well, if players are struggling making connections with college coaches, you know, we as coaches, as club members, will contact those college coaches on behalf of the players too. So again, all of that is geared towards helping players beyond UCFC, beyond high school, and going into play some form of college soccer as high a level as they're willing to play, because it is a big commitment for sure. And then switching gears a little bit, just wanted to talk about league play. I know I've personally had quite a few questions on the various different leagues, or a number of leagues out there. There's on the girls' side, Girls Academy, MLS Next. On the boys' side, you've got ECNL on boys and girls. You've got USYS National League, which is part of the EDP umbrella, and a ton of other options as well. Now, we choose to play USYS National League and EDP. Now, the National League are the top two divisions basically of EDP. So EDP is a very competitive league as it is. The National League off the top of that is the highest level that EDP offers. Now, the specific reason why we, in fact, these all tie in actually, Ruben, if you want to do the next two, I guess they do hide them afterwards, don't they? So the competition level's high. So in short, EDP, USYS National League and ECNL, the competition level's high. You're going to be playing against good teams week in, week out. But one of the key differences there straight away is that there's a big travel time difference. Competing in the ECNL, as an example, you may be driving, hours and hours to play a competitive game. EDP and the USYS National League has a lot more competitive teams, a little closer to home too, and therefore the travel time isn't as great. There's one huge bonus from our point of view. Why drive out of state to play a similar ability team that you could play in state, or at least close to home, if still out of state. The biggest one though for us is your placement is earned with the National League and with EDP. So effectively get promoted and relegated. Meaning if you do well one season, you finish in the top 2 or 3 places in your league, you stand a very good chance of getting promoted into the higher level league. Same thing on the bottom. If you struggle in a particular flight, you'll get relegated. Now that same can't be said for a league like ECNL, for example. That is basically built off a club reputation and more about necessarily who you know, or in this case, who the club knows versus what you do as a team. So again, National League is earned. You have to do well in EDP to stand a chance of being considered for National League. And that was why I made the point right at the start of the call. Now, hopefully a little more context around that, with 5 of our 6 middle school teams have earned the opportunity to play in the National League. And we're proud to say that. It's not the fact that we've registered to be part of a different league. It's the fact these teams have earned the opportunity to play at that level. And it is a very high level of competition for those teams too.
Dan, do you mind if I just jump in really quickly on this specific topic? Because obviously this comes up quite a bit.
Absolutely.
So EDP and the National League are an open platform. Not only can you you can sign up, and not only can you earn your stripes, so to speak, it's open to anyone. And therefore, if you do well as a team and program, you get to play at a high level. Where some of the other programs, including ECNL, are closed systems where the teams the clubs in the league decide who joins. And it could well be that even though you may be good enough to play at a certain standard, they don't want you in there, or your rival doesn't want you in there because they're worried about the competition, basically. We like an open system. We like a system in which our teams are given the opportunity to play at the highest level depending on the needs of the team. That's why we choose the National League and EDP. Simple.
Perfect. Another benefit as well that we see with EDP is continuing to grow as a program, and we see it with the amount of information that they're constantly sending out to us as a member club, and to players that will have registered with EDP as well. It is building its college and professional links there as well. It's really trying to help build a platform to help gear all players that take part in EDP and the National League towards college soccer or beyond. Plus, again, I'll use the couple of teams I work with at the moment. I use the 2007 girls team as an example. We recently went to a tournament, a showcase event, and there were in that tournament teams from all of these different leagues in the bracket that we were playing in. We had an academy team, a pre-academy team, an ECNL team, and ourselves from National League. So there's easy ways to get exposure to teams from all these different leagues. But the main point I want to emphasize there is we're all in the same bracket at the same tournament. They were all very competitive games. And, all of those teams belonged alongside each other. So to me, it just emphasizes the point that, it's not a case of one having the truly elite teams and the other, having lesser teams, so to speak. We have very high level teams in the National League that are able to compete with, and beat in a lot of cases teams from these other leagues too.
All right, so Dan, the next slide is indeed the Q&A, although some questions have been posed throughout the presentation. There were two more that came in as we were talking, and a lot of it is still on team selection. Somebody asked about attendance at tryouts.
Yep.
And I like to believe that this is in regards to tryouts for some of the younger teams where we have 2 open tryouts. Whether or not it's mandatory to attend both tryouts. Now, nothing is mandatory. Want to stress that. However, first of all, if you want to be seen, if you show up for 2 events versus 1, you have a greater chance of being seen and being able to showcase yourself accordingly. Plus, what signal do you want to send? All right, you want to attend 1, you want to attend both, right? So we're not making anything mandatory, but given what we discussed earlier, something to consider. Somebody else also asked about coach assignments. Now, we just announced the coaches assignments for our incoming U12s. Now, not all coaches, we're still planning ahead. We've had quite a few coach changes going into this year, so don't foresee a lot of changes. That being said, we're not able to confirm everything at this point, given that it's still early April, but we'll make sure that if there's any changes, that will be communicated as well. And again, knowing the audience, the majority are here for the incoming U12s, hence that's why we announced the coaches for those 2 teams, the boys and girls, via this platform. Now, if you have any questions based on what we discussed, please let us know now. Let's I'm going to stop sharing. Let's use the chat if you have any other questions, and we'll do our best to address them accordingly before we finish tonight's meeting. And by the way, if you don't have any questions, I mean, you're free to go as well. Obviously, we're waiting to hear, when you have any questions. But if you found the evening insightful and you got all the information that you need, you're free to go as well. Understand that it is a Friday night and you may have very exciting things to do still. Right, Dan?
Absolutely.
Because I'm monitoring the chat right now. There you go. So we are able to share, we will post this link or the link to this meeting at some point to share the link for tonight's meeting via a variety of platforms, because we are recording as we speak. And once uploaded on my computer, we'll make sure we get it out to everyone as well, in case you want to go through it again. That being said, you can always reach out to us via email as well. Then why don't we both share our email addresses with the audience via the chat. So if people have any questions that they don't want to ask right now, we can, they can reach out to us directly. All right. So at this point, I've only seen one question come in regards to the current U12 boys, or the current U11 boys going into U12. Whether or not, wanting to know whether or not we're going to have 1 or 2 teams. Obviously, going into it, we're going to have definitely 1 team because that is the plan. Whether or not we're going to have 2 teams, that highly depends on a variety of factors that we discussed earlier on as well. And it's too soon to say that without having seen the tryouts yet. And having seen the people that have signed up for the tryouts, obviously. So. All right, so a question about positions. So depending on the age of a team, and that's what I alluded to earlier, at a younger age, it's mostly about overall ability and understanding of the game, as well as attitude, effort, etc. And an older age, it may be a little bit more specific, but through a trial process, you are often also able to, watch a player and determine based on, preferences and tendencies where they're best suited. Although the trial process for the older teams is slightly different, especially when they only have 1 open tryout. I would say the goalkeeper position is the only exception from the rule, and we often bring our goalkeeper coach in for those tryouts, or at least one of the tryouts, to make sure that we have evaluated any interested player that wants to be considered as a goalkeeper. right, so there's a question about the financial commitment. Once you sign up for the program, the entire program from August through June is included. So all the fall and spring training, as well as winter training, tournament play, etc., registration, insurance. Tournament playing, so that is all part of. The only thing that's not part is the uniform. That is a separate cost. And Dan mentioned summer play, summer programs. If we would do something or offer something, that would be at an additional cost. But we try to always keep the cost for those type of programs low. But once you sign up, it basically covers almost everything that we do throughout. And in regards to goalkeeper tryouts, our plan would be to have the goalkeeper coach come to the actual tryout, or at least one of the tryouts scheduled for at least our younger teams, to evaluate anyone that wants to be considered as a goalkeeper, whether it be full-time or part-time. All right, so Dan, not sure if you have anything else to add, but we've kept everyone on for an hour. Again, we've shared our contact information via the chat. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. I mean, sometimes you may have a question that's specific to you or very personal, and you don't want to share in a platform like this. We fully understand. Please use email then as a source to get in touch with us. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight. I really hope that tonight's event was insightful for you and provided you with the information you were looking for. And we obviously hope to see everyone out on the field very soon, albeit still somewhat socially distant, but hope is on the horizon. So thank you very much, everyone. A good night, and we'll see each other very soon.
Thank you, everyone. We'll look forward to seeing you all on the field next week and the week after.
There we go.